Welcome to the second hour of the Elias Macko Show. Our next guest made some headlines over the last week with this quote: "Everybody should just shut up." Now, why did he say something like that? Well, it all has to do with the Bank of Canada's independence, right? From government interference specifically. We have seen of late premiers across the country, David Eby in BC, Doug Ford in Ontario, even Chrystia Freeland, making some comments that some people would say impacts the independence of the Bank of Canada. And it's important, right? Interest rates, inflation, the effect on citizens. We see it. And of course, it has an impact on you, right? Think of your mortgage rates. So some people would say, no, it's good that these premiers and other politicians are speaking up. But some experts worry this has an effect on the central bank's independence. Let's go now to Christopher Ragan, founding director of the McGill School of Public Policy at McGill University. Christopher, welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
And I know you probably had so many amazing and insightful things to say, but of course, everybody should shut up is the key headline note that was taken away by journalists here. Let's get to the crux of your messaging here. Along with everyone should shut up, what's the message you want to pass along today?
Well, let me begin by saying it was not my intention to be so blunt and so rude, and for that I apologize. But there was a serious point that I was trying to make. And the interview that I had was a discussion about elected leaders, and in particular, a federal finance minister, basically, openly being either happy or unhappy with a current interest rate move by the Bank of Canada. And that's my concern. As you said in your lead, the concern here is about the independence of the Bank of Canada, and in particular from the government of Canada. Now, the government of Canada, of course, owns the Bank of Canada. The government of Canada is the sole shareholder of the Bank of Canada. The government of Canada, the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister, appoint the governor to the Bank of Canada. But over many years, something like 40 or 50 years, and many countries, there has been a recognition that central banks that are operationally, day-to-day, independent from the political process and from the government ends up having better policy. Mm-hmm. And that's really what I was concerned about, is that when the finance minister or the prime minister starts to opine on whether the central bank is doing a good job or a bad job, then it leads people to wonder whether the central bank is actually doing the best it can to achieve its objectives, or whether it is being pushed by political forces. And that is a problem.
And of course, at the beginning of the month, right, there was the decision by the Bank of Canada on interest rates, and they held the line, right? And when you train a dog and you take the treat and you hold it up and the dog will sit, and you're like, you say the word sit, then you give them the treat, right? And the dog learns if it sits, it gets the treat. And I look at that decision in September. The Bank of Canada holds the line. And basically, Chrystia Freeland in her comments provides the treat. Oh, good Bank of Canada, and that certainly does send a message. Go ahead.
I think it's quite appropriate that you and I and other economists and people thinking about monetary policy, we should debate what the bank is doing. We should debate whether low inflation is a good objective. We should debate about the trade-off, if there is one, between inflation and economic activity. I think that's completely appropriate, especially, of course, in a democratic society. But I think it actually is inappropriate when the federal minister of finance, basically passes judgment. I think they can pass judgment on the benefits of low inflation, but I think they need to resist the temptation to pass judgment on any particular tactical, if you like, decision by the central bank.
We are with Christopher Ragan from the McGill School of Public Policy at McGill University in Montreal. Chrystia Freeland knows this, right? Chrystia Freeland knows better. She still did it. Why?
Well, look, I'm not a political strategist. I'm not a political advisor. I would like to believe that your first statement is true, that Chrystia Freeland knows this. But the answer to why she decided to say it anyway, you should ask her. Maybe it is Maybe it is an appeal to populist sentiment. Maybe she's trying to show that she cares. I don't know the answer. So you should ask her.
Well, let's. I hope to get her on the program, and then B, to actually get real answers. I mean, this. I don't know if you've probably noticed this. When you have someone from the Liberal Party of Canada on now, it's hard to get anything other than talking points, right? So that creates a whole other issue here.
That may be true when you're asking questions of most sitting politicians.
Very true. Hey, let me ask you this, right? Because there was one a premier that said, "No, this Bank of Canada is independent. I ain't saying nothing," and it was François Legault. Can I get your take? Because listen, a lot of people love to accuse François Legault of all types of things, especially of the populist vein.
Yeah.
And there you have him doing something that's not in the populist vein at all, right? So what's your take on that?
Look, that's quite interesting. François Legault is absolutely capable of surprising people in different ways at different times. On the provincial premiers, though, there were two provincial premiers who wrote a letter or made a public statement to the governor of the bank. I think that is also not particularly helpful. I don't know how many people know that the provincial premiers don't have any direct involvement or connection to the central bank. But still, I think the danger is that there's a risk that it politicizes the process. And really what we're shooting for, or I would argue that we should be shooting for, is a monetary policy process in terms of its day-to-day and week-to-week operations that is really apolitical. When I was a special advisor to the governor in 2004, 2005, I often described that experience, and it was a wonderful year to be inside the Bank of Canada, but it really felt like it was apolitical. It felt like politics just didn't enter the place at all. Whereas, 7 years later, I had a similar position in the Department of Finance in Ottawa, and you could feel politics kind of every day. And that's a very important difference. And there's a reason why it's there at the Department of Finance, and there's a reason why it's not there in the central bank. And I just think you really want, that's an asset. It's subtle. I think not a lot of people, think about the intricacies of monetary policy and why politicization tends to lead to higher inflation, but that is in fact the experience over time and over many countries. And so you want to protect that asset of a central bank independence.
Christopher, you saw the inflation numbers this morning. It's at 4%, housing at 6%. I imagine the pressure can only increase from here on the Bank of Canada.
Well, that may well be the case. And so, the Bank of Canada is doing its best to, process all of the information that it sees, and then to make the best decision it can in terms of getting inflation back down to its target. It is clear that its mandate is to, get inflation back down to 2%. It doesn't have to do it tomorrow, and it probably couldn't if it tried. But it is trying to do that in a way that, of course, supports economic growth. So we have been living in the last 2 or 3 years in very unusual times, shall I say, in terms of what central bankers are going through. Inflation, of course, as everybody knows, was quite high last year, and it is still higher than we'd like it to be. But the causes of that inflation have also been quite varied, unusual. And so it's been a tough couple of years for central banks to, in fact, analyze exactly what's going on and what part of that inflation they needed to respond to and which part they maybe couldn't do much about. So, I guess my heart goes out a little bit to central bankers today because I think they are living through tough times.
Let me tell you something, Christopher. You shouldn't apologize for everybody should just shut up. You should put that on T-shirts and bumper stickers and sell it, for crying out loud. Trademark it, for crying out loud.
I'll let you take a shot at that.
Oh, very good. All right. That's permission. That counts. Christopher, great discussion. This was a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
That's Christopher Ragan, founding director at the Max Bell School of Public Policy at McGill University.